This podcast discusses real-life experiences that may include topics such as grief, trauma, medical or mental health challenges, and other emotionally sensitive content. Please take care of yourself while listening, and if at any point in the conversation you feel overwhelmed, it's okay to pause, step away, or skip this episode entirely. While some of our guests are licensed professionals, the Holiday Survival Podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered medical, psychological, or therapeutic advice. If you are struggling or need support, please reach out to a qualified healthcare provider or mental health professional. Now, let's begin. The holidays can be the most wonderful time of the year, or they can literally be the worst. That's why I'm bringing back the Holiday Survival Podcast, the show that gets real about a season that isn't always merry and bright. If the holidays bring up stress, grief, pressure, complicated family dynamics, or just big emotions, you are in the right place. My name is Erin and I am your host. In each episode, we'll have honest conversations, share practical tools, and offer hope for anyone navigating the messy, beautiful, and emotional reality of this time of the year. No forced cheer, no sugarcoating, just real stories, real support, and reminders that you are not alone. I hope that you enjoyed the show. Welcome back to the Holiday Survival Podcast. For many people, the holidays aren't just twinkling lights and joyful gatherings. They can be a tender mix of grief, pressure, unmet expectations, and emotions that feel louder this time of year. And if that's you, you're not alone. Today, I'm joined by grief guide and soul mentor, Teri Gosselin. In this conversation, we'll talk about why the holidays can stir up unexpected emotions, how grief and joy can coexist, and what it looks like to take care for your heart when the season feels heavier than it looks on the outside. My hope is that in this conversation, we can offer you compassion and support as you move through this holiday season in your own way. So Teri, thank you so much for being here. Why don't you introduce yourself, who you are, and what you do so that our listeners can get to know you?
Thank you so much, Erin, for having me, and I'm so excited to be here. As you shared, I'm Teri Gosselin. I'm a grief guide, soul mentor, and the creator of Soul Glow and Alchemy. Just to share a little bit about me, so I'm a mom, married, and my grief journey began after losing my brother, Joey, in 2008, just 3 weeks before my wedding day. I did not know at the time, but his loss would become an awakening for me. I really, truly wouldn't recognize it for about 8 more years when I was going through my own health crisis at the time. And I realized I needed to stop bypassing my pain, start listening to my body and my intuition, and start journeying a bit more with my grief so I could process, heal, and eventually activate this new way to help other people.
That is so needed, especially right now with the landscape that we're in socially and politically. And I know that you are a government employee, and we are currently, at the time of recording this, in shutdown season. How is that impacting you and your family?
Yes. So we are indeed in shutdown season. I will say this is not something that's new. As a federal employee, you are primed every year around the fiscal end, which is September 30th, to begin this planning process in the event of a lapse of appropriations. And we've seen a lot more in recent years due to continuing resolutions with certain dates. So this is not my first government shutdown, but it is definitely my most interesting one. It's also been one that the stakes are quite high. And it's really been an interesting teacher for me this year in particular, as I've stopped gripping control over things that are out of it and really giving myself space. So it is very interesting times, not clear when the government will reopen. It is doubly impactful in my home because both my husband and I are federal employees, but he is still working just without pay at the moment. So it's an interesting time, but I'm using this opportunity to dive deeper into my business and supporting clients, to offer support and share that there are ways to navigate, especially like your nervous system really needs that extra time to be present and be regulated in a time when there's so much in our world that's going on and out of our own control. This is the way we can bring back control, is to take care of ourselves.
I love that. I love everything you just said, because it's one of those things where most people don't know what nervous system regulation is, but they would really be served well to go look it up and do some research and work on it. I don't say that as a mean thing, like, no, I'm saying that you really need to go look it up. I promise it's going to help you feel better, because this time is just so tense. There's so much friction in the air. And it being at the holidays right now, that can already bring up so many mixed emotions. So from your perspective, why does this season tend to amplify hidden or unprocessed grief, even when that grief isn't always tied to death?
Such a good question. And I think really what boils down to that the holidays in general are really emotionally charged in so many different directions, right? We have nostalgia working for us. There's also these pieces of unmet expectations for ourselves by others, of other people. Challenging relationships come into play, and this societal pressure to be happy, be joyful, be okay. It's the holiday season. 'Tis the season, right? And this is what society suggests that we should be feeling. And so this contrast can somehow bring up and bubble up these hidden emotions that grief, sadness, anxiety, overwhelm, these I like to call them lower vibrational, but they're just all emotions, right? But these feelings that we're not really comfortable with having them have a seat at the table for the holidays, but are actually going to come forward whether you're ready for them or not. And just to add too, like as you mentioned at the beginning, like grief isn't always about who we've lost. It can also be about what we've lost. And so this time is such a time of reflection as well. Sometimes it gets a little quiet in some aspects of our life. So we have this opportunity to sit with, are we really where we want to be? Is this what we thought our life would look like? Is this the relationship I should be in? Who am I? And asking some of these reflective questions that really have the grief and these spaces of ourselves bubbling up, because all of a sudden you have this realization that, wait a minute, this is not joyful. This is not something that I'm excited with. Why is this coming forward? What is happening? And so our bodies often reveal what we've been suppressing. And that the holiday time can become a mirror of this emotional truth. Whether we're ready to look in the mirror or not is a different story.
Girl, you preaching over there. The body does, in fact, keep the score. Again, go look up nervous system regulation. Yes. It's going to help you, I promise. So, no, I am totally on board with everything you just said, especially the part about sometimes we have to look in the mirror. It's not exactly the easiest thing to do, but it can be rewarding whenever you get to the other side of working through whatever it is that needs to be worked through in that moment. You've shared that losing your brother just before your wedding became a turning point in your life and in your work. What did that experience teach you about grief, especially during the moments where we are supposed to be joyful?
Yeah, it's such a powerful question. So thank you for bringing that forward. Obviously, losing my brother suddenly, a few weeks before my wedding day, was completely core rocking, was not on my bingo card for that year after planning a wedding for a year. And I became really intimately familiar with resilience, with learning how to dance with both joy and grief simultaneously. And I have to say and be honest that I didn't know that at the time. That was obviously why this experience and grief itself has been one of my greatest teachers in this lifetime. But I found myself taking some aspects on my wedding day to honor my brother and his presence. We kept a space open down the aisle where he would have walked. I had a locket with his photo and a photo of us when we were kids that I had draped throughout my bouquet. And then I'd also given my dad a stopwatch and my sister something, my mom something, all these little things sprinkled throughout the day and the ceremony to honor his presence, his importance, and bring in those, even though there's such raw pain at that time, and I think we were still navigating shock as well, but these pieces of joy that we were able to sprinkle in the day and really keep that close to our heart. Over the course of my healing journey, I have come to realize that this experience really helped open up what emotional duality, nervous system overload, here we go with that nervous system talk again, and the loneliness of performing joy. And I will say that performing joy was something I did for many years until I realized that there are ways to be present with joy and grief without having to put on a performative nature. And so these joyful moments and the milestones continue on. My sister got married. We had children. We still have celebratory moments. And my brother, Joey, his presence is felt, not physically, but in this other life that we choose to have him be with us at. And we just allow the sadness to come forward when it does, but also remember the joy of experiencing life in the now. And I think that's really what a lot of this boils down to, is starting to become more intimate with finding those pockets, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a bit, I think. But this was really the way that I began navigating this. And it's only amplified over time, of course. And it also, over time as well, restarted this reconnection with spirit for me, which got tested when I lost my brother, but really activated this opportunity to bring back that connection, get reconnected with my body, with my intuition, and finding my life's purpose to guide other women through this and know that they can journey back to themselves even when loss has taken the lead in their life.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know that sometimes recounting these experiences is not easy. I really loved what you said about performative joy, because I feel like there's a lot of us wearing that mask during the holiday season. We might not be feeling it. We don't want our kids to not have a good Christmas, or we don't want to disappoint our parents or family members or friends. And we just wear that mask, and people feel pressure to stay positive or hold it together for everyone else. And so what happens when we bypass our emotions instead of acknowledging them?
Yes. So good. Such a good question. So when we're performing joy or putting on this positive mask, we are essentially pushing down our emotions or basically pushing them out and avoiding them. And this leads ultimately to a deeper burnout state, a disconnection, whether it's from yourself, your soul, your connection with spirit, with other people, and even physical symptoms and disease. As you already mentioned about the body keeps a scorebook. And it's really important because over time, we continue to wear these masks and our body is trying to use its wisdom to show us how an emotion we're not feeling is popping up in our body and kind of overtaking it. And I have my own personal examples to showcase around that, but it's really important that it can be a wake-up call for many people to say, hey, something's actually not right. And I really need to maybe look in and see what's going on. And so our nervous system craves acknowledgement. It really wants us to be aware of what's going on. And when we're suppressing our emotions, we're signaling to our body and our nervous system that it is not safe to tell the truth, to be true, to carry on in a certain way. And ultimately, we're diminishing our light within in order to put on that mask or put on the show must go on.
And even appease others.
Absolutely. And so one of the things I talk a lot about, and we all hear it, we board on a plane, and they talk about making sure to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before a child or an elderly person. This is also the same thing, putting on your oxygen mask for your emotional needs first, because it's not selfish. It's actually self-sustaining and ultimately will be a ripple in relationships and so on with others. But it actually helps you reclaim your own breath, your own emotional wellness, your own soul, brings you back to all of those things. Now, this is not easy. It's not something that can be done in a day. It definitely is a muscle that needs to be stretched and worked out regularly. But when we begin to name some of these emotions that are popping up and really trying not to do that without judgment, right? And opening ourselves up to finding safety within ourselves to truly sit and feel the emotion, to express the emotion we're feeling, to move it, because emotion is energy in motion. We begin to free ourselves, and you no longer need that mask. You can learn to feel safe within yourself, to be grounded, to feel peace and presence within. And everybody's journey looks different. But when we bypass, you'll start to get signals. And then when it's time, there's hope in being able to shift that and really begin to not put on a mask anymore, to really be who you are.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of what you're talking about is very similar to my own personal journey. I've spent the last 5 years healing from some things that happened. Reclaiming is a very big theme of this season of the podcast, because that's what our hope is. I had to reclaim my nervous system. I spent a whole year. Last year was the year of the nervous system for me. And I had to learn so much about being self-aware of my emotions through that, and then what nervous system state I was in. It's a little bit of a puzzle, I'm not going to lie. And what Teri said about it being a muscle, so true. You have to work with it consistently to see the growth and evolution of your nervous system. But it is such valuable work when you really commit to that intention of, you know what, I want to have a little bit more freedom in my body. That's so important. And I know that we've talked about how grief isn't always associated with death. Some people carry quiet grief, so it could be a loss of a dream, a relationship, a sense of self, or, like we've been talking about, or a person. What are some grounding or accessible practices that they can use to navigate the holidays with more compassion for themselves?
Yes. So I love this question. I have a couple of tools in my toolkit that I want to share. First, I want to share that permission is going to be the most important thing you give yourself this season. Giving yourself that opportunity to have compassion for yourself and for others too is really powerful. And just even having that intention setting of I'm giving myself permission to be where I am is very powerful. But I do want to say that, so we've been talking about a nervous system check-in quite a bit here today. And so that is one of the things I want to recommend is that, and it can be as easy as, what does my body need right now in this moment? Whether you are at a holiday gathering, you are at home during the holiday season or out and about, whatever that looks like for you, check in with yourself. Check in with each of your different senses to really bring in the present moment and see, and allow the very first emotion, word, whatever it is, feeling, color that comes forward, be the response. And you may not understand what any of it means, but just checking in with yourself, allowing yourself to become more comfortable with being present with yourself, with what is coming forward for you, is going to be so powerful. And then each time you check in with yourself, and I would even encourage checking in with yourself when you are not in a moment of overwhelm or upset, burnout, even checking in with yourself on a regular basis and seeing, because there's oftentimes things there for us. And it's also really great to have those moments of when you're just feeling peace or feeling presence or even feeling that pocket of joy, to be able to take that and lock it in, being able to remember that so you can revisit that at a later date. I also really recommend little micro practices practices. So much like exercising a muscle and strengthening it, these micro practices are little pockets for you to figure out what feels good for you in that moment after checking in with yourself. Whether it's a solo walk, some people like to journal or voice notes, maybe out grounding outside barefoot, although I know it can be really cold during this time of year, but it also can be very refreshing. But it also can look like removing events from your schedule and creating a necessary boundary for your own well-being, which can feel a little bit harder to do in these moments, but it's really important if that's what your body is telling you. If you're being told, I actually need to step back from this. I've taken too much on this season. I don't have the capacity to do one more thing, or I'm going to lose it. Or I really don't think I can show up. I'm having some challenges with some family members or friends in this group, and this just doesn't feel like the right space for my own wellness right now. Give yourself that permission to make those decisions and stick by them. And guilt can come through. I know this can be really difficult, and people who don't understand or don't agree will perhaps try to make you feel guilty for taking that time for yourself. But this is that opportunity where you can stay true to you and make that decision and stay firm with what you need and knowing that it's okay. Everybody will be okay no matter what.
I love what you mentioned about the boundaries. I think that is really key. We did a lot in season 1 about boundaries. So those of you out there listening, definitely go check out some of those episodes because it's really helpful. But one thing I can say is that anybody who gets mad when you set a boundary is probably not a healthy individual to be dealing with.
Agree completely. They likely need to do some of their own work as well.
Amen, sister. They definitely need to do some work.
So let's say you decide to go to an event and there is an uncomfortable situation that pops up, or you are just all of a sudden, that's where your intuition maybe is rising. Like something's going on. I don't like where this conversation's leading. This is not feeling great. Or I'm just starting to feel like a lot of emotion, a lot of frenetic energy even. There's these moments where you can either step away and maybe place a hand on your heart. By touching your body and touching yourself, you're reaffirming that you are a safe place to be. And you can even say, I am safe to be with what's here, and just allowing yourself that space. Or if you can't get away and are with other people and you're starting to feel it, like even just having some felt sense, rubbing your arms up and down, taking a deep breath in and exhaling. These are things you can still do in a public setting without raising too much alarm because it still looks like you're part of it, but giving yourself that sense and reminding yourself, hey, I'm safe. I'm a safe person. And if it starts to feel too uncomfortable or too unsafe, excuse yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I just want to continue to remind you that you always have that permission for yourself to do what is needed.
I think that is really important for people to know. And you gave a lot of really good practices that I've used in the past myself. So I can co-sign on that. That is definitely something that is helpful. And if people just do a few of those things, you can help yourself a lot. Something that I've heard you talk about is grief and hope coexisting rather than canceling each other out. What does that actually look like in real life, especially in times where joy really does feel far away?
Sure. So just to talk a little bit about what I was talking about earlier, emotions live on a different frequency level, right? But it's all on this same sort of line. And maybe grief is on one end and maybe joy or hope is on the other, but you're always sliding back and forth up and down this scale throughout the day, throughout the year, no matter what. We're always doing that. So it doesn't cancel. It actually is coexisting. They're opposite ends, but companions even. So there is this really beautiful, I like to call it a dance. I really do. Because while grief cracks us open oftentimes, inside that crack is something beautiful. It's pure, it's tender, it's beauty, it's love, it's depth, it's compassion, it's peace, it's presence. And it's when you're in it, I will say it's really hard to see that, of course. But there is the space to start anew, right? There is this place of being able to learn how and be able to take that grief or that pain and sadness and be able to then hold those pieces of presence and joy in this really beautiful way. This ability to see how it lives in the world. As we've shared, the world is a bit on fire at the moment. And also, there's still rainbows after a storm, right? There's still a baby laughing hysterically, and you watch with the biggest smile on your face, right? There's that first sip of coffee in the morning. There are these pockets of joy every day, even when the chaos and grief surrounds us. And it's really being able to notice it, to witness it, to be present with it. So then you're not taking it for granted when the grief happens, when things come in and the world feels like it's blowing up around you, that you can be with the world blowing up around you and then also be with the space of, wow, my cozy hoodie feels amazing on my skin right now. I feel so safe in it. Or I got the cold side of the pillow. It's the first thing I flipped over. It's like the best, right?
Love the cold side of the pillow.
It's my favorite. So there are sparks of joy. And I think when you've had the opportunity, and I know it's funny to say the opportunity for feeling grief, but I think as you get to know your grief on a deeper level, the appreciation for those joyful moments in the ordinary that are happening all around you all the time. And they may seem small and simple, but gosh, those are the big things.
I totally agree. I think that's really important for all of us to know. You can have good and bad happening at the same time, but man, that's something that I've really had to work through myself. So yeah. I feel like anybody that's been on a healing journey, you know what we're talking about here. You feel it deeply.
You do. And not to say for those who have not maybe embraced their healing journey yet, like it may be hard to see those spots of joy, but even just taking a moment and sitting with yourself to see, was there a moment in your day where you smiled or appreciated something or something you do every single day that feels good to you, that makes you feel safe and secure and at home with yourself? And maybe use that as your starting point, as a starting point to see, okay, and maybe that begins to open up awareness to other pockets that live within and around you.
Yeah, that's good information. A listener is entering into the holiday season feeling overwhelmed or numb or disconnected. What is one last message that you would want them to hold on to so that they don't lose sight of their own light?
First of all, you are not alone. I have been there. Many people have been there. Many people are there. So you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. And each day you continue to show up. You are brave and you are continuing to be present with yourself. There's no pressure to do more. There is none. So you're not meant to hold it all. And if this is that permission slip you need, I hope this is exactly what you take away. It really is a season about giving yourself permission to pause, to feel, and to choose peace over performance, no matter what, because your peace is more important than any show you could possibly put on for someone else. And so I just wish you a beautiful holiday season, whatever that looks like. And you have nothing to fix. Just hold your heart where you are, and that can be enough.
I love that. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm sure that everybody out there listening will too. How can our listeners connect with you?
Thanks, Erin. This has been such an amazing conversation. I appreciate it. But listeners can connect with me on Instagram at Soul Glow and Alchemy. And that's also my website, www.soulglowandalchemy.com.
Perfect. We will make sure that those links are in the show notes. They're also going to be in the gift guide. So make sure to check those things out. Teri, thank you so much for being here. I am so thankful that we got to have this time together, but also I'm thankful for the message that you just shared with us. That's really powerful.
Thank you so much, Erin. Really appreciate being here.
Thank you for listening to the Holiday Survival Podcast. If this episode helped you feel a little bit more seen, supported, or sane during the holidays, it would mean so much if you'd leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and tap the 5-star rating on Spotify. It's a simple way to help more people find the show, and it truly makes a difference. For resources, links, and next steps from today's episode, just check out our show notes and be sure to click the follow button on whatever platform you're listening to this on so that you never miss an episode from this season. Remember, you don't have to navigate the holidays alone. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next episode.